You are very welcome along to the Library of Mythical Ireland. My name is Anthony Murphy, and for the next hour or so, we are presenting episode 17 of the Mythical Ireland series Talk. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, make a comment if you can, it all helps. If you're watching on Facebook, you've probably already subscribed to either the Mythical Ireland page on facebook.com/Mythical Ireland or the Mythical Ireland community. A little reminder, if you are watching this afterwards as a recorded video, this is a live event, and we always say hello to those who drop in on the live stream. There have been regular comments on YouTube from people disgruntled about the fact that we spend a little bit of time hello to people. That is part and parcel of the live streams since they began in March of 2020. All you need to do is just fast forward a little bit until you find the spot the episode begins, and I beg your forgiveness and your patience in that matter. Anyway, we are live at the moment on, as I say, both YouTube and on Facebook, and I want to say good evening to Barbara Barney, who is in the house. Good evening, Barbara. Good afternoon to you. Hope you are well. Robin Rickman has joined us, and so has Rose Corraine, by the way. Hello, Rose. Welcome. I mentioned Robin Rickman. Welcome back, Robin. Good to see you. Anne McCallum is in the house. Hello, Anthony and fellow book lovers and mighty. Kudos and congratulations to your amazing and hardworking daughter, Tara, on her fine dad. All fair, chuffed, and rightly so. Yes, indeed. A little bit of an update on that one. First of all, patrons will be treated to an hour-long documentary about the Bowbeck excavations, which I've been working on today, the editing of. The second thing is that the experts now believe that what she found was a 17th century drain, not an earlier. And she's not disappointed at all. It was found in the last 20 minutes of the last day of the dig. What great excitement on the site. And thank you, Anne. Always a pleasure. Paul Alburl is in Alabama, in Daphne. Good evening to you. Joe Butler is here. Hello, Joe. Welcome along to live stream. Doris O'Hara is in the house. Hello, Doris. You're very welcome. Paula Snow Queen is in the house. Hello, Paula. Great to see you, as it is to everyone else. Janet Moran is in lovely summery Boston. We were supposed to have rain today. The rainfall radar showed this huge mass of rain coming. I flew the drone this morning as early as I could before the rain came. What happened? The rain never came to Drogheda. Never came here to Brúnabonia and Drogheda. It parted around us, and it's now the sun is shining. What? I don't know. Irish weather, tell you, unpredictable. Jason is in Dale Hollow Lake. Received both my signed books last week. Quite informative, brilliant stuff, Jason. Great to hear it. Thank you for mentioning that. I hope that they bring you great pleasure and that they're very informative. Yet another chance to want another book. Yes, indeed. And tonight's one isn't cheap. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a moment. Erica Bow is here. Hello, Erica. I haven't seen you in a while. I hope you are keeping safe and well. Jules Cousins is in the house. Likewise, Jules, hope you are in good form. Peter Donald is in Woodstock in New York. Hello, Peter. Good afternoon to you from a sunny Boyne Valley. Deborah Williams is in good form because she spells hello with some extra letters. Hello. So good to be with everyone as well. All good on this side. Deborah, hope you're in good form yourself. Wendy Holmes is here from Hudson Valley. Hello, Wendy. Welcome along. Curious Celt is in the house. Didn't get a notification. Disappointing. YouTube should automatically if you're subscribed. But anyway, at least you remembered. Erica Rivertree, the other Erica, is here. Banachty, Louisville, Kentucky. Much love to Anthony and all the two of the Mythflix. Indeed, right back at you, Erica. Great to see you and welcome to the live stream. Archaeoastronomy Database is in the house. Hello, friends. Glad to be here. Exciting things are always happening with Mythical Ireland. Yes, and there's a whole program of observations that should have happened around Newgrange this year, for which I have to apologise, first for not really having the time to fit them in, and secondly for the fact that the pandemic has kind of put a lot of pressure on access to monuments. But next year maybe, and we'll maybe get a team of volunteers together for that, so maybe that will happen before too long. Mandy McCurr, Lou is here on the Isle of Mull. Hello, Debbie and Jason. Hello, Mandy. And I can boast that the county that I live in, County Louth, is anglicised from Gundinalu, which is named from Lugh, the deity. And on the crest of our county is the phrase Lugh Samaldonach, which of course is one of Lugh's many names. Lou, the many gifted. Steve Martinson is in Monona, Wisconsin, which he says is beautiful. No bias there, Steve. I'm sure it is. Good health and prosperity to all. And the same right back to you. Thank you. Paul Garron is in the house. Paul, I think, would have taken special interest in the latest video on the Mythical Ireland YouTube channel, which is about where is the only place in Ireland that you can drive on a public road across a late Neolithic henge. Paul, I had credited with bringing this to my attention, but he says it wasn't him, so it must have been someone else. But Paul is a man who knows the landscape very well. Marcia Downs is in the White Mountains in New Hampshire, missing Ireland. Hopefully you'll get a chance to visit us before too long, Marcia. Kimberly Halligan is in the house. Hello, Kimberly. Where it's sunny New York City. Fantastic. Oh, do you know what? Myself and my wife were in New York for one day, New York City, and we would love to go back. Mesmerizing place. Thomas Ellis is in Court McSherry. Hello. Sorry, Thomas. Pardon me. Court McSherry is in the county of Cork. Is that right? Down south. I hope the sun is splitting the stones down there. Nick Esk. That's not Nick S. Hang on, Sandrine. Don't you interrupt. That was my fault. Nick Eska Casterton is in the house. How are you, Nick? Great to see you, and hope you're in good form. And Alex as well, and all who are there. Sandrine is in France and says bonsoir. Hope everyone is fine today. Yes, indeed. Certainly can speak for myself anyway in saying that I am. Diana Dawn Wilson Jepson is in North Berwick. Is that Berwick or Berwick? If that's an English name, I think they would pronounce it Berwick, but pardon me for my complete ignorance, but you're very welcome from Maine. And I hope the weather is good. Daisy Peters is in the house. Daisy, a very, very enthusiastic watcher of live streams and videos on Mythical Ireland. Daisy, great to see you. Daisy is in Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires. One or the other. Daisy's in Brazil. Hello, Daisy. Good afternoon to you. Welcome to the Northern Hemisphere live stream from the Southern Hemisphere. Paul Campbell is in Galway City on the west coast of Ireland, where he did his own Facebook Live yesterday on a stroll through the city centre. About 1,000 views so far. Fantastic stuff, Paul. Brilliant stuff, and the best of luck with it. Maybe that will become a regular feature. Miss Marie, hello, and that is our wonderful supporter, Marie Lendon. Marie, you're very welcome along. All in good form, and I hope the same can be said for yourself. Erica Bowes hoping to come to Ireland. Yes, well, do you know what? You'd be very welcome here. We'll give you the Cade Meal of Fáilte, that's for sure. Silv Forishi is saying blessings for Lughnasadh to everyone from County Tyrone. Good evening to you, Silv. You're very welcome. Gemma McGowan is in the house. Lughnasadh blessings, Machara August, Tosa Fain, Gemma, Conasata to Machara. Things I hope are very good. Stephen O'Hara is in a sunny Kilkenny. Glad to hear that the fine weather we're experiencing here in the Boyne Valley is also being felt elsewhere. Brilliant stuff. The Curious Celt, I think I mentioned. If I didn't, apologies. You're very welcome along. Lynn Bedry is in California, Northern California. Brilliant stuff, Lynn. Send us some of that weather, some of those fine beaches. Hang on. Is Northern California the bit that's cold? John Main is over there, and he says, is it Los Angeles? No. Is it San Francisco you're in, John? One or the other. And he says it's often cool with mistiness. Neil Hughes and Mary are in Coatbridge in Scotland with the usual beverages. That is Fion Jarrag, or red wine for Neil, and Cup on Che Jas for Máire, or Mary, should we call her. Rock and Rap Records knew it was going to be a good day today for some reason. Now I know why. Drolene from Michigan, and happy Lughnasadh to all. Good evening to you, and you're very welcome along. Great to have you here. Lillian Cruz, it is Lughnasadh, and I would argue the point. Lughnasadh, according to the old-fashioned calendar, would mark the cross-quarter day that is halfway between summer solstice and autumn equinox. I think it usually falls around the 7th or the 8th of August. If you have your Mythical Ireland 2021 calendar handy, you'll find the exact date in there. The 1st of August is generally the date upon which it is celebrated in modern times to coincide with the modern calendar. Catherine Marion Moore is saying it's great to see you again. I can't even remember when we last had rain in Salem, Oregon. Yes, we had a little bit of rain, but the last 3 weeks have been mostly dry, and the grass is of course, this leads to some crop marks and some recent discoveries with the drone not far here from Drogheda here, where I'm broadcasting from. Diana Dawn Wilson Jepson says, it's lovely here today. I'm missing Ireland as well. Everybody who's not in Ireland misses Ireland. That's completely understandable. Helena Breen says, hello. Hello, Helena. Conas Tá tú, Fáilte Roat, good G on Loughanleagh Shu. Deborah Williams saying hello to Sandrine. Yvette Tillema is in the house. I wish I had that book. Let's not spark off a case of book jealousy here while I wave it in front of you. Ooh. Joke. Terrible. Sorry. That's just not acceptable. Kath Freeman, who is the moderator of this discussion? Throw that Murphy idiot out. Kath Freeman is in Waterville in County Kerry. Lovely part of the world, Kath. Very close to Ireland's, the Republic of Ireland's only dark sky site. Brilliant stuff. Alan Hoskins is saying hello from Ballina, Killaloe. Hello, Alan. Very good evening to you, and you're very welcome along. Desiree is in the house. So good to be back with everyone. Me and my pups are listening here in Grand Junction. Fantastic to see you, Desiree. We lost you to the wilderness, and the wilderness of no internet connection for several weeks, and we did miss you, and you are being mentioned regularly. So good to have you back for the live streams. Welcome to the library. Pull up a chair, grab a dram, make yourself comfortable. Don't forget to feed the pups too, but don't give them whiskey. Noel Kelly's just back from a walk out at Oldbridge. The harvest has started. Lughnasadh blessings. I was out there flying the drone in that area from the road, from the public road at the weekend, looking at the crops. Nothing to be seen there, although there are Bronze Age ring barrows down there, but nothing that I could see. But great to have you along, Noel. Alwyn Roy Badziak is in the house from Berkshire in the UK. Booked my flight to the homeland for September. Brilliant stuff, Alwyn, and great to see you on the live stream here. Adina Sparks is saying good afternoon from a warm but cloudy New Mexico. Well, you're very welcome along. Please keep the cloud there. Don't send it here. We've had enough. Melanie Lynn is in the house. Hello, Melanie. It's always a pleasure to see you. I hope you're in good form. And we haven't seen you in a while, but look, you know, I completely understand. People come and go because life gets in the way of these things. And I hope you're in good form. As I say, Jan Tolson Lord is in California. Brilliant stuff. We have people from the West Coast and the East Coast and in between. Hello from Georgia, says Melanie. That's Georgia in the US. You're very welcome along. Sue Prenter says that pups, all 5 fed. Looking forward to this talk. Fair play to you. That's all I can say. We have 2 dogs and it's hard to manage them. Hello from Brazil, says Fernanda Cardoso. Hello, Fernanda. You're very welcome. A good evening to you. Amadeus jumped off a 2nd-story balcony to follow me on a trail ride yesterday. Thank God he was okay. So he is punished today, lol. Punished by having to listen to me for an hour. Mavanway Millward is in the house, running around this evening, but I'm listening, ready to be tempted by another book. That's perfectly okay. You don't have to sit and watch the screen, of course. I've been told I have a face for radio, so the voice, I think, will do the job. I think that's us up to date so far. You're all very welcome along. Nick Livingston is saying it's great to tune in again. Quite right, life gets in the way. That's just the way it is. Sometimes I have had to postpone my live streams precisely because life got in the way and there's lots and lots to be done. Irish Technical Thinker is in the house. That's Marcus, and many blessings. Thank you. And Komani Gia Yves Golair. Tom Lawler is in County Tipperary. Loved the fire, Tom. Hope you're keeping well. And yes, can you believe that we have reached the month of Lughnasa, August already? Where is the summer going? I know some of you may be watching from the Southern Hemisphere. I don't see Adele Perth there, although she did say that it's a 4 a.m. for her, which is completely understandable if she's not able to join us and wants to watch afterwards. And if you're watching afterwards, Adele, and all of our viewers in the Southern Hemisphere, we acknowledge your presence and say hello. This is the time of year, of course, when the harvest is well and truly underway here in the Boyne Valley area. Of course, the eastern fringe of Ireland, the eastern half of Ireland, as it were, is tillage rich. It's all very good pasture land and tillage land, but it's where most of the tillage is concentrated. And when we got the heat wave a couple of weeks ago, the winter barley ripened out nicely, so the farmers went in and got that, and then the spring barley ripened and they got that, and now they're harvesting the other crops. So very quickly we're seeing all the crops disappear, and the fields will return to a barren state in the near future. There is a video on my YouTube channel which I'll share on the page later on, which was made last year, in August last year, and it refers to the old name of the Festival of Lughnasa, which is Brón Trogan, which means the earth sorrows, because although it is producing an abundant harvest, it is also saddened, or humans are saddened by the fact that the earth has to return to a fruitless and barren cold state. Anyway, this what are we on? 16 minutes, is it? Yeah, something like that. 15. We'll call it 15 and a half. The talking about today is apt for this time of year. It is the mammoth tome, The Festival of Lughnasa by Máire MacNeill. Now, I should tell you, this was originally published in 1962. Reprinted in 1982 and reprinted in 2008. So this is a 2008 reprint. It is a comprehensive tome. It runs to more than 700 pages. It happens to be a weighty publication. If I take off the dust jacket, you'll see it's got this beautiful red Wibbelin cover with the lettering inlaid in gold, a little bit like my Return to Segish, which is blue with silver inlay. No, gold inlay. Oh my God, imagine I have forgotten. How could I? It's gold, isn't it? Duh, Anthony, don't be so stupid. Of course it's gold. Sorry about that. Moment of self-doubt there. It happens to the best of us, but as I advance in age, it seems to be happening more frequently. So there you go. So long as I don't forget my name or anything important like that, we'll be okay. A little bit from the dust jacket about the Festival of Lughnasa. Garland Sunday and Dawnach Chromdubh are two of the many names of a festival celebrated by Irish country people at the end of July or the beginning of August. It marked the end of summer and the beginning of the harvest season, and on that day, the first meal of the year's new food crop was eaten. The chief custom was the restoring by the rural communities to the resorting by the rural communities to certain heights or watersides to spend the day in festivity, sports, and bilberry picking. The custom existed also on the Isle of Man, Cornwall, Wales, and in the north of England. Formerly, it must have been general in all Celtic lands, for there is no doubt that a survival of Lughnasa, the Celtic festival, there's no doubt that it is a survival of Lughnasa, the Celtic festival, held on the 1st of August, or as I say, on the old Cross Quarter Day. In the description of the celebration, much emerges of the old life of the countryside, and so the study is in part a contribution to social history. Moreover, as the people preserved legends of the origin of the festival and of the assembly sites, it has been possible to show a correspondence with ancient mythology as expressed in Archer and in the cult figures of Roman Gaul. The dominant myth of the festival is brought to light. A panorama, both and detailed, is unfolded in the study, which reveals, inter alia, the nature of Chromdubh, shows that legends of Cuchulainn, St. Patrick, and Cornwall's Jack the Tinkard originate in tales of Lugh, suggests why Jephthah's daughter was connected with the festival in the Isle of Man, glances at the evil cult of St. James, and interprets anew the Battle of Moytura and the Etain saga. It shows a relationship between the old assembly of Talchu, that's Telltown in anglicised terminology, and the Croagh Patrick pilgrimage, which, by the way, Reek Sunday occurs on the last Sunday of July. It discusses Puck Fair. It ranges from Lughnasadh in the 1st century Gaul to Dunluy at the foot of Errigal. Figures from Irish mythology, hagiography, and history throng its pages. Máire MacNeill, 1904 to 1987, studied at University College Dublin, was a graduate of the National University of Ireland. From 1935 to 1949, she was a member of staff of the Irish Folklore Commission, and I think that really shows in this work because it draws heavily upon Irish Folklore Commission archives. She was a co-editor and translator of Síos Gaelta ó Hir Conal, Fairy Legends from Donegal, in the Corla Beologus Éireann series, Scrivini Beologus, Folklore Studies, and the translator of Seamus O'Dolarga's Lara Sean O'Connell, Sean O'Connell's book in the same series. Now, the real difficulty here is Tarini Pendleton is in the house. That's not the difficulty, sorry. Tarini, good evening to you. Welcome along. AJ is in the house. Hello, AJ. You're very welcome along. Marianne is also here. Hello, Marianne. Blessed Lughnasadh to you. Alan Taff is in the south of France. Bonsoir, Alain. And Saba. Josephine is in Naas in County Kildare. Brilliant stuff, Josephine. You're very welcome along. Mark Gordon is in the house. Hello, Mark, as is Lara Herbert, and Coda is getting rather excited about the episode. He's barking merrily out there. Did I miss anyone? I hope I didn't miss anyone. The real difficulty here is, where do you start in a 700-page tome? Now, price tag for this book, when I purchased it, was the royal sum of €50. The date of purchase and the price tag is still on it. It is, as far as I understand, you can still get copies of it. The last time I was in the old bookshop on the Hill of Tara, which may be a year and a half ago now, I saw a copy there, and I think it was something like €45 or €50. Look, all I can say is, if you're interested in Irish mythology and customs, and Celtic mythology more broadly, you can't be without it. And the other opinion is that it is absolutely worth every cent. It is a masterful work that Máire MacNeill must have spent many a dedicated year putting together. It's really, really fabulous. So it really is difficult. And I know that we've read from it before, because we did have a Lughnasadh celebration last year, and we had episodes on Crum Dubh as well, and we also read from it. So I'm going to find something that I think we perhaps haven't. Also, some very, very useful information about ancient assemblies, which is something we're very interested in here at Mythical Ireland, having dealt with some of the henge sites and the possibility that perhaps the later historically recorded assembly sites may actually have originated as celebrations or festivities at the henges. And remember, the henges are late Neolithic. That pushes them all the way back to about 4,500 years ago. So I'm going to go to the section about festive assemblies on heights to give you a flavour of what sort of things were happening around Lughnasadh. So I'm just dipping in and out of it, basically. As I said, we've read on a couple of occasions from the book, and I hope that gives you a nice flavour of it. And Scott Doherty's in the house. It's a no-brown zone, so we do not accept apologies. There's absolutely no need to apologise. And as it happens, you just literally have arrived on time. Because, why? Because we're just about to start reading. And this is from Loughanleagh, which is in Muff in County Cavan. Loughanleagh is a hill that is actually quite prominent, viewed from the hills of Lough Crew. It's also visible from parts of Dundalk in the north of County Louth. So these are just some of the more localised traditions, which Máire MacNeill assembled from the various records, quite a lot of it from the Irish Folklore Commission archives, about the festivities that happened. And remember, it's a time of year when people are really celebrating, because this is the end of what was called the six-week hunger. That period of the year where the farm produce from last year's harvest has basically been exhausted, and people are starting to get hungry, and they're waiting for this harvest. A scrutiny of the map shows that the plains of Meath and Louth are separated from the interior by a series of low hills and lakes in rising ground, which form a frontier between two kinds of terrain. On the one side lies the rich pasture land fit to nourish an ample life, and on the other a hilly, boggy, waterlogged and formerly wooded country where older populations could take refuge and survive. One of these hilly plateaux had the ancient name of Sliabh-Gura, Guaire. It stretches from Loch Sillan to Loch Ramor. Loch Ramor is sort of just at the northern tip of Meath, or the southern tip of Cavan, near to the village of Virginia in County Cavan. And the towns of Shercock, Ballyborough and Kingscourt form a triangle on it. So yes, it's definitely in Cavan. Forgive me if I've suggested for a moment the Meath folk have enough in their county without taking some of Cavan's lakes. From within its confines have come two of the National Museum's most remarkable relics of our pagan past. It is also a place of Lughnasadh survivals. The next 4 instances came from this area. Loughanleagh is the name now given to a hill which lies between Ballyborough and Kingscourt. It is over 1,000 feet in altitude, and people say that 9 counties can be seen from its summit on a clear day. And of course, this is something that I've remarked on many a time in the past, about how with every eminence or hill or mountain in Ireland, it is always known locally how many counties can be seen from its summit. And I think that goes way back into prehistory, to a time when the cosmology was such that you rooted yourself in the earth on sacred hills, in sacred river valleys. All the land was sacred, and all of the other sacred eminences could be pinpointed from the eminence that you were standing upon. A mile away is the Rock of Muff, where there was formerly an O'Reilly Castle, and which to the present day is the site of an annual horse fair on August the 12th. An old road, part of which is called the Bridle Path, runs over the hill, and local tradition holds that this was the main road from Dublin to Derry in the old days. On the Sunday before the Fair of Muff, which would be either the first or second Sunday in the month according to the week which the 12th fell, and which was known as the Patron Sunday. So that word is pronounced differently, patron or pattern. Patron Sunday. Crowds of people used to come to the hill, put up tents, and stay there until the fair. They spent the time dancing, singing, and making merry. And ass races were held on the bridle path, that is donkeys to you and me. In addition to the hill gathering on the Sunday before the fair, 4 Sundays in July are known as the Bilberry Sundays. And on each of these days, the young people from miles around come to climb the hill, pick the berries, meet their sweethearts, and dance to melodeons. Sounds very romantic. Former innocent times before mass produce was available in local supermarkets. There is a cairn on top of the hill, which all visit because, as they say, the best view is got from there. There was a lake on the hillside which dried up 70 years before, so the old people said in 1942. Its waters were holy, and no doubt it was the lake which gave its present name to the hill. After it dried up, the mud residue was used to cure ailments in men and animals. Nearby there is a well, which is also looked upon as holy because its waters came from the lake. The holiness of the lake is accounted for in a legend set in the penal days. A priest was celebrating Mass at the Mass Rock, and of course that's during the time of the penal laws, when Catholic masses and sacraments were forbidden to be held, and therefore they went kind of underground, so to speak, into secret areas. A priest was celebrating Mass at the Mass Rock, midway between the lake and the well, when watchers on the lookout posts signalled that soldiers were approaching. The priest swallowed the sacred host, and as he was making escape, he threw the chalice into the lake. Ever since, there is a cure in the lake and in the well. Another legend tells that the lake dried up after its desecration by a local squire who washed hounds suffering from mange in it. We suspect that the holiness of the lake far antedates the penal days. And we may wonder if the hounds whose immersion caused the disappearance of the lake do not come originally from the same mythological world as the hounds of Fionn, which tore up the lake on Carntoher. Very astute observation from Máire MacNeill, and one of many, many astute observations that she makes throughout this wonderful work. A special interest lies in the connection of Loughanleagh with the Fair of Muff, for here we have a threefold Lughnasadh survival in the association of sacred places on a height with a festive gathering and a fair. Now we go to Taghart, Taghart, which is also in the county of Cavan. Two miles north of Loughanleagh, there is a hill of 982 feet, which is called Taghart Mountain. In 1941, a local man gave the following information. In olden times, there was a fair held at Taghart Mountain. This mountain is about 3 miles from Kingscourt, the same distance from Ballyborough, and about 3.5 to 4 from Shercock. It is in the parish of Enniskeith, which parish is comprised of the chapel areas of Kingscourt, Muff and Corley. This fair was something like the Tailteann Festival. It lasted a week. Sports and races were held, and the old racecourse can still be pointed out. In the foot races, the competitors ran over a large field at the foot of the mountain, and evidently they swam across one part of the lake. If they cycled as well, that's a triathlon. It was an annual event, and it would be at least 200 years since it was last held. Incredible stuff. In 1942, it was reported that Taghart was still being resorted to by young people on Bilberry Sundays. In Ralahan Bog at the foot of Taghart, a wooden figure, now in the National Museum, was found. Dr. Raftery says it is probably to be connected with fertility rites. It is interesting in that it is the only human figure carved in the round known from prehistoric times. No connection between this figure and a Lughnasadh survival can be proved, but it is at least worth bearing in mind that it was found near a place traditionally remembered as the site of a popular assembly. And now we move to Corlech Hill in County Cavan. 5 miles west of Taghart, in the parish of Knockbride and townland of Drumeeg, is Corlech Hill, from which came the three-faced stone head, now in the National Museum, Dublin, and sometimes called the Corlech God. Mr. Thomas J. Barron, who found the head and sent it to the museum, was also an inquirer into local traditions for the Irish Folklore Commission. An 80-year-old countryman told him that on the first Sunday of August, which he knew as Bilberry Sunday, he had also heard the names Garland Sunday, Lammas Sunday, Men's Sunday, and August Sunday. People used to visit Corlech Hill. He had there been 3 graves or monuments on the hill, and also an old well, which was specially respected, though he did not think that it was well. At the Giant's Grave in Drumeeg, townland, there is an old wall which was regarded as the work of an ancient race of people he had heard called the Philippines. A foot alongside it, he had heard his mother tell of 2 idols with 2 or 3 faces which had been dug up near the Giant's Grave but were no longer extant. Mr. Barron is confident that they were two-faced, as he had got a good account of them from another man years before. In earlier times, Mr. Barron points out, Corlech Hill must have been isolated by bogs and marsh which surround it on all sides. The old man knew of 2 other Bilberry Sunday assemblies besides those on Corlech Hill and Loughanleagh. These were at Skay Bog near Corlech and Leeks Rocks near the village of Shercock. His account of these meetings repeats the information we have of other assemblies. There was the usual bilberry picking, dancing, courtship, games and athletic sports. One item deserves special note, as we have echoes of it at a few other assembly places. Factions backing champion dancers were liable to fall out and fight. The fighting Irish, eh? He had no legends of the festival, but thought that it was held in honour of Saints Patrick, Bridget and Columkill. Tíorchar, which is anglicised to Tier Worker in County Meath. Near the southern edge of the hilly plateau, just across the Meath boundary, there's a hill of 637 feet called Tíorchar or Tier Worker, which has interesting legendary connections. Within living memory, it was visited by crowds of people on Sundays in July to pick bilberries and enjoy the view, and a persistent tradition remains in the district of a great fair there in former times, which lasted for a week and at which horses, cattle and other farm animals were bought and sold. And I think this may give us just the slightest glimpse into prehistoric assemblies. Enoch cites, perhaps at the Henges, that it wasn't just about games and sports and it wasn't just about feasting on the harvest, but there may have also been an element of trade involved. There was an O'Reilly castle nearby. The fair came to an end about 200 years before, so the old people said, because of a fight in which a man was killed. The dispute arose over the winning of a race between 2 girls, an English girl and an Irish girl. Well, that would start a fight, wouldn't it? This strange bit of flotsam from the past, and remember we're going back to perhaps the late 18th century in this case, pre-famine times. This strange bit of flotsam from the past is perhaps more interesting than may appear on the surface. When the tradition is shed of the circumstantial details which seem to fit it to its late peasant milieu, there remains the race between the two girls at a assembly and a fatal fight, an event rather more appropriate to the first flowering of the assembly than to its end. Tír Virchur, or Tír Worker, was also the home of the mythological woman who is well remembered in the traditions of the district. Her name was Garavog, or Gargan, or alternatively, her husband's name was Gargan. Sometimes she was called the Cailleach Garagon. And of course, this is the same figure as the Cailleach that we encounter in so many other places in Ireland. The variants of the local legend about her will be given in another part of this work. Briefly, they tell that St. Patrick, having come from Meath on his missionary journey, was preparing to say Mass in the old church of Moybolog, and Garavog, who was on her way to Mass fasting, saw blackberries by the road and insisted on eating them in spite of her servant boy's remonstrances. She immediately turned into a voracious monster, devoured the boy, her horse, and people she met on the road. The saint, warned of her coming, dashed out and killed her by casting his staff at her. There is the famous story that we encounter in Irish and British and Celtic mythology of the sun god killing the serpent. Whereupon she divided into 4 pieces, one of which went into the air, one into the ground beneath, one into Tír Virchur Lake, and the 4th into another nearby lake. So this is the dismemberment and the creation. She's forming parts of the landscape, which I have no doubt is a variant of the Mata legend that we encounter at Brunabonia, which is not a corruption, but a variant of similar legends from around the world, which are creation myths. She is to rise again after a certain number of Gargans, the surname is common locally, pass the spot, a small place in the road, still pointed out. And people of the name always made a little detour to avoid the spot. The story has made such an impression on popular imagination that a grotesque medieval sculptured head, now set in the sacristy wall of Clonafillip Church in Killinkeer, 6 miles away, is said to represent her. There can be no doubt of the mythological nature of this story. Fascinating stuff. Great scholarship too. And I need to take a drink of water. Hope everybody's in good form and nobody has left because they're bored. Marianne Kinja is in the house. Hello, Marianne. You're very welcome along to the live stream. I hope you are in good form. Loughnleagh, G-L-A-H, in County Cavan. We have now left the frontier plateau and come to a hill 15 miles west of it and 15 miles southeast of Cavan town. Loughnleagh, pronounced Schlegla, S-L-E-G-L-A, locally, rises to 1,055 feet. It is the highest point for many miles in any direction and commands an impressive prospect. The lakes Sheelin, Gowna, Otter, and Upper Erne are all within view. Southward is the Central Plain, and northwestward is the Slieve Aniran Range, and north and east the land stretches towards the low hill barriers which made Breffne a well-defended hinterland. This is one of the hills which people climbed to pick bilberries and see the country around. The tradition of a special day faded, but we may safely assume that it was the last Sunday of July. There is a giant's grave on Loughnleagh, and a big stone at Lavey, 2 miles east, is said to have been thrown by the Loughnleagh giant at his brother in Lavey. Pardon me. Excuse me. And that information comes from Brendan Rooney, a native of Cavan, in the year 1946. Owen Martin tells us that he can see Loughnleagh from his house. Brilliant stuff. Fantastic. Shantimon Hill in County Cavan. 3 miles northeast of the town of Cavan is Shantimon Hill, said to be the inauguration place of the O'Reillys, and therefore most probably a place of ancient solemnity. On it there is an alignment of stones known as Finn McCool's Fingers. Quite a common name for standing stone rows in Ireland. A gathering known as the Pattern, P-A-T-T-E-R-N, see the way that word changes, the Pattern of Shantimon, was still being attended, especially by young people, in the 40s of the 20th century on Bilberry Sunday. That comes from a report in the Anglo-Celt newspaper from July the 19th, 1941. Ballyheady Hill, or is it Ballyheady Hill, is the Irish there that we can determine. Ballyheady. I'm not familiar with it. Is it Ballyheady or Ballyheady? Perhaps some of the Cavan viewers can fill us in as to the pronunciation. Ballyheady Hill is 1.5 miles south of the village of Ballyconnell, which lies at the foot of Slieve Rushen, the mountain to the west of Upper Lough Erne. It lies on the border of the ancient territory of Moy Schlacht. Up to the beginning of the 20th century, Bilberry Sunday was celebrated by a visit to the hill by young and old. The young people played games and danced to fiddle and flute and searched the hill for bilberries. Sometimes there were competitive sports like wrestling and throwing weights. As remembered, it was a rural festivity without outstanding traditions of any kind. On Ballyheady, however, there is a cairn reputed to be the grave of Conall Cearnach, one of the famous heroes of the Ulster cycle, and we've met him in several of our episodes of Live Irish Myths. A burial in the cairn is described by Professor O'Riordan, who investigated it in 1932. That's Sean P. O'Riordan. As it was on the periphery of the cairn, Professor O'Riordan believed that it was not the main burial. He ascribed it tentatively to the Middle Bronze Age. And of course, that is a thing about, some of the Neolithic cairns, is that we find later Bronze Age burials on the periphery of them, in the cairn or on the verge of it, as it were. The report of the human remains made by Dr. Martin revealed it as the grave of a partially cremated adult man of large stature, with whom was buried a young woman and a child, neither of whom had been cremated. Dr. Martin gave instances of other similar burials and suggested that the woman's body may have been that of a wife or slave buried with her husband or master. This discovery in a cairn on a hill where an annual festival was held on the Sunday before Lughnasadh is of extraordinary interest. We must, however, bear in mind that no traditional connection between the assembly and the cairn has been recorded, as is the case, I suspect, in many, many instances. Just Davo Grin is in the house. Hello, Davo in Beaujolais. Have a glass on me and send one over in this direction. Joke. Did anybody come up with a pronunciation? No. Okay, that's all right. Ballyheady or Ballyheady, I'm not sure. Tory Hole in Slieve Rushen. That's Rushen, County Cavan. On the west of Slieve Rushen, about a mile from Killahadoo Graveyard. I love some of the Irish place names. In the townland of Ahakinny, there is a cave called Hole, which is supposed to go right under the mountain. On the afternoon of the first Sunday of August, known as Tory Hole Sunday, people gather there, explore the cave, and sit around in groups chatting. In former times, the gathering was a regular patron or pattern. The place was known to be an abode of F-words, and several F-word anecdotes are told of it. At the patron or the patron once, I suppose I should really call it a patron, because I grew up with, they were always called pattern, so I presume it's patron rather than patron. At the patron once, many years ago, a fiddler went into the cave to play a few tunes and was never seen again. That story is actually a common one too. But sounds of fiddler's music and fairy dancing are heard from inside the Tory Hole. And again, that's another common theme. There's a story about, a similar story about Doubt, actually. On top in which the cave is situated, there's an old fort. Once in the midst of the patron's merriment at the fort, people heard the strangest, sweetest music imaginable and saw it came from a tiny fiddler in old-fashioned clothes. They danced and danced to his music, pardon me, oh, I do apologize, until the sun went down and the little man disappeared. Oh, I love these old stories. Emma Fitzsimons is in the house from Loughanleagh Mountain. Brilliant stuff. That's great. I hope you're enjoying the stories, and I hope that you're going to go up there You might have been up there yesterday, but in the keeping of the Association of Lughnasa with the older cross quarter date, you're permitted to go up there next weekend, perhaps on Sunday, and pick yourself some bilberries. Brilliant stuff. The Black Rocks, Bella Valley Gap, County Cavan. Between Quilka Mountain and the Slieve Aniran range, there is a gap at an altitude of 1,000 feet, and over this a road goes, which climbs from the valley at the western foot of Slieve Rushen and then descends into Glen Gevlin. Halfway up the road to the gap, there is a large crag of limestone rock overhanging the road, which is known as the Black Rocks, or Maguire's Chair. Here, a famous Donna, D-O-N-A-G-H, Downa Sunday gathering was held on the last Sunday of July. People from miles around attended it. In recent years, thank you, Coda. Yes, indeed. I think he's barking at the prospect of gathering some bilberries on the top of a hill. People from miles around attended it. In recent years, there has been no special form of entertainment. The people just congregated about the place, met their neighbours, sat in groups, admiring the view. The more active amongst them climbed to the top of the rock. The old people tell, however, that they had heard that long ago there used to be games, dancing, and athletic feats. It is mainly a youthful gathering, but our chief correspondent says that apart from the boys and girls going there to see and be seen, there is no courtship. This was not always so. Dalton was told that the custom of runaway matches was long kept up in connection with these occasions at Quilka. And that's from the Proceedings of the Royal Irish Academy, Volume 36, 1922. Runaway matches is a recognised custom, it may be added. Runaway matches as a recognised custom, it may be added, are peculiar in Ireland to Ulster, perhaps to Mid-Ulster and Donegal. None of the old people can tell what the origin of the gathering was beyond that, quote, it must always have been, and long ago it was much bigger than it is now, unquote. Everybody knows that the Black Rocks is a great place for the F words. Darragh Fort, the supposed site of the idol Crom Croach, is visible from the Black Rocks, and some hold that in pagan times the festival had a connection with the one held at Darragh. But this opinion, as our correspondent suggests, may easily have come from reading about Crom Croach and not from local tradition. In recent years, there has been an attempt to introduce the custom of sitting and wishing in Maguire's Chair, but this, we are told, is an innovation. In 1802, Sir Charles Coote wrote of, on the summit of Quilka is a spring of good water, and this hill forms a remarkable feature in this district and overhangs the valley with towering magnificence. For this mountain, the rude natives have a strong veneration, and that is definitely the language of imperialism, if ever I heard it. Rude natives. And numerous fables, too absurd to relate, are on record amongst them of its supernatural powers, and the extraordinary race which they affirm and well believe are resident within it. Nor is it less remarkable that the summit of this hill was the place always chosen for the crowning of the Maguires, or investing their chief with supreme power over the adjoining county of Fermanagh. To this day, the ignorant peasants, ignorant, how dare he suggest that the peasants are ignorant? I bet you they knew more than he did. The ignorant peasants on these hills believe that the fates of that family are all dependent on Quilka, and that extraordinary appearances are seen here on the decease of any of the descendants of their ancient chiefs. And that's from Sir Charles Coote's, if you're interested, and I doubt you are, Statistical Survey of Cavan, 1802. Dalton pointed out that it must have been the name Maguire's Chair which misled Coote into locating the inauguration place of the Maguires on top of Quilka. And there is a possibility that he may have attributed to Quilka traditions belonging to nearby Benaghlin, the next station on our itinerary. Robert Friend is in the house. Hello, Robert. Welcome along. Fáilte. Yes, sorry, Desiree has pointed out something that I never even noticed. That is, Coda's barking. He's merely translating for the canine listeners talking about. Benaghlin, which is from Bin Achlan, or Bin Achlora in County Fermanagh. The basin of Upper Erne is bounded on its western side by a group of hills. One of these is Benaghlin, or Bin, as the country people call it. Bin is just a ben, is like a summit, which rises steeply to its summit and which commands a sweeping view of the labyrinthine lake and the flat farmlands along the indented shores on one side, and on the other, of the desolate moorlands stretching towards the Quilka heights in County Cavan. The land seen from it is in the old patrimony of the Maguires, whose place of inauguration lies 12 miles away on the east of the lake and whose hegemony has left a tradition. On the last Sunday of July, known in the district as Bin Sunday, and also by the more general names of Bilberry Sunday, Dunna Sunday, and Downach Deranach, people used to climb the hill, admire the view, pick bilberries, and visit caves, of which there are many in the limestone highlands of southern Fermanagh. The custom was still followed up to the 40s of the 20th century. So just for geographical clarity here, Fermanagh is in modern-day Northern Ireland, across the border from the Republic. Cavan would be in the Republic of Ireland, and Fermanagh in Northern Ireland. But of course, the border is invisible. And certainly the border of history is invisible. The custom was still followed up to the 40s of the 20th century. At a place called the Blaybank, that's B-A-N-K, there is a square stone with curious inscriptions on it, and this spot was one of the places resorted to by the hill climbers. Old people remembered that 70 or 80 years ago, the crowds had been much bigger and had enjoyed themselves with dancing, fiddling, and wrestling. In the old days, too, the day used to end with a challenge fight with fists or sticks between rival groups. One account says that a section was led by a man with the surname McHugh, whose byname was Thomas the Wrangler, not Samson the Sadducees Strangler, whose exploits survive in local song and story. The opposing section came from Derrylin, some 8 miles in the flats along the lake. Another informant says that the fighting was between Catholic and Protestant factions. The district is one in which the farming community is composed of adherents of both faiths, and bad feeling has often run high amongst them. We may assume, however, that the faction fighting at the Hilltop Festival is much older than the Reformation, and has an origin more remote than the local rivalries of the Derrylin boys and the followers of Thomas the Wrangler, readily as these latter-day groups may have fallen into an ancient pattern. Benaghlin is in the neighbourhood of other Bilberry Sunday assembly places. Only 4 miles away is Kinawley, and within a radius of 20 miles there are several other gatherings. On the slopes of the hill there are remains of 2 ancient cairns, but no recorded tradition connects them with an outing on Bin Sunday. The countryside is rich in antiquities of the Bronze Age and must have been comparatively densely populated in very early times. The hill was a specially F-word place. It is named in a list of F-word hills in a verse quoted in Nielsen's tale of the F-word kidnapping of Mary O'Rourke. When O'Donovan was in Fermanagh, that's John O'Donovan of the Ordnance Survey, in 1834, he wrote, "There is a tradition that Dun Maguire, the first prince of Fermanagh, inhabits this peak yet, and it is firmly believed that whenever any of his real descendants die, a splink falls off the rocky face of the bin." He goes by the name of Dun na Binne and presides over all the F-words of Fermanagh. This Dun frequently assisted Maguire in his battles. Tradition preserves one instance of his influence in turning the scale of fight against the English on one occasion at the 2 Mile River. Maguire had exhausted all his ammunition, but by the invisible agency of Dun na Binne, he gained the battle by casting Irish balls, otherwise known as stones. Between 1931 and 1933, an 80-year-old native of Glengevlin, whose grandfather had come from Kinawley, told Éamon O'Toole that he had heard that Benaghlin was the dwelling place of an F-word king named Dún Binne Magur. In a note on the name, Professor O'Toole quotes a passage from a tale in an unpublished manuscript. And that's in Irish, and we'll give you the English version. Trumchio Dreachta, magical deep mist, sent letters and a messenger to ask aid of Dun of Benaghlin, which is now called Benaghlin from Ulster. And the reason why that peak is called Benaghlin is that at Samhain tide, an enormous, sleek, silky horse used to rise up to its middle out of the peak, and, speaking in a human voice, would tell anyone who sought the information all that would happen to him within a year from that Samhain. And they used to leave offerings and great gifts for it on the peak, and the people believed in it until the time of Patrick and the holy clerics. This is an interesting item, but reluctantly we must concede that it may be a pseudo-learned invention suggested by the old name and with little basis in genuine tradition. All that we may safely take from it is that the scribe's fancy may have been influenced by the F-word traditions and ancient pagan associations of the assembly on the hill. And now we go to Topped Mountain, Topped, Topped Mountain in County Fermanagh. Across the basin of Lough Erne from Benaghlin, some 5 miles northeast of Enniskillen, there is a hill now called Topped Mountain in the townland of Loughnleagh, which may represent its former name. Although only 910 feet in height, an extensive view may be seen from its summit. Both stretches of Lough Erne lie mapped below it, and the hills of Monaghan, Tyrone, Fermanagh and Cavan bound the horizon. The hill is crowned by a large cairn. An English travel book writer who climbed the hill in 1835 was told that it contained the graves of 3 Danish princesses. And 40 years later, when Wakeman was investigating the antiquities of the district, he found the same tradition. I may here interject to say that it would be my opinion that where you see the word Danish, that is probably, possibly, maybe a corruption of Danan, rather than relating to the Danes, as in the Vikings, who were actually Norse Vikings in Ireland, not Danes. It probably more relates to the Danan. Local belief nowadays claims that it is the grave of a king of Ireland. One of Wakeman's informants was an Irish speaker who died in 1875, aged 97, and who 5 years earlier had told him a story of 2 cairns which were on opposite sides of a little lake, Lughnasadh, which is from Irish Lough an Scoil, the lake of the phantom or shadow, about a mile south of Topped Mountain. The lake is marked L Scale on the Ordnance Survey map, Skale, no doubt an attempt to anglicise it, Lough an Scoil. The cairns were assembled as ammunition heaps by 2 giants, one of whom believed the other was his wife's lover. The jealous husband was pacified when a wise man told him to grasp his shadow in the lake, and was thus persuaded that his jealousy was without substance. I love these. I love the pedagogical nature of these tales. The story was partially suggested, no doubt, by the word scoil, taken as meaning shadow in the place name. The rivalry of the stone-throwing giants, however, may well be older than the moralizing or etymological elements, of the fable, and the name is much more likely to mean the lake of the phantom or preternatural being than the lake of the shadow. There is another little lake on the south side of the hill from which a, quote, water horse, unquote, used to rise and to cross the heath to Loughnascoil, into which it entered, quote, on a visit, as is supposed, to some kindred mystery, unquote, as Wakeman tells in his paraphrase of the local legend. In addition to the cairns on the hilltop and by the lakeside, Wakeman described a stone circle, a fine dolmen and pillar stone, and suggested that the eminence had been a kind of pagan necropolis. Sounds like a Neolithic monument complex. It is at least certain that in former times it was a place of awe and story. On Sunday, which in this instance is reckoned as the 3rd Sunday of July, the local people used to climb the hill, pick bilberries and string them on stalks of grass, visit the cairn and enjoy the view. No memory survives of dancing, sports or faction fighting, but the outing was lit for courting couples. Mavanway wants to know if we're still in Fermanagh. Yes, that is Topped Mountain in County Fermanagh that we have just finished. There's also a kist grave on the summit of Topped and several stone circles, including a triple stone circle, says Sue Prenter. Brilliant stuff. Must go and visit there, definitely. Belmore Mountain, which again is in County Fermanagh. Belmore Mountain, as it is now called, rises from an oval ground base to a broad, bare summit, and the axis of which runs east and west. Beneath its steep eastern slopes lies the well-watered and hummocky lowland between Upper and Lower Lough Erne and the town of Enniskillen. At its southern side, the narrow arms of Lough MacNeill lie between it and the wild and desolate Quilka and Leitrim hills. The lowland at its foot was a place of early habitation, as a number of prehistoric monuments proves. In the cliffs, eagles used to nest. On the summit towards the east there is a tarn, and at an altitude of 1,150 feet, a cairn, now known as the Eagle's Knoll. Groups still climbed the mountain in 1942 on Bilberry Sunday, which was also known as Dawnach Geranach, to pick bilberries and, quote, travel the whole mountain and sport themselves, unquote. It was remembered that about 100 years before, there had been a big gathering on the mountain with dancing and singing, games, weight throwing, wrestling and fighting. The cake women and fruit sellers used to come out from town the night before with their wares, and there were ass loads of whiskey and poaching for the thirsty. I have to say, I'll just be honest with you here. I've never tasted poaching, believe it or not. Never. So that's something I have to do. But I'll tell you, if I was thirsty downing whiskey kind of burns the gob, you know? Like, yes, I'll take a drink of water and maybe then I'll have a little dram of whiskey, you know? But I wouldn't be drinking whiskey if I was thirsty. There was much matchmaking at the gathering, or after it. One old woman remembered that it was at the cairn that the people gathered to dance and sing, and that everyone was supposed to add a stone to the cairn. Wow. Wakeman recorded of a pillar stone in Castle Cool Demeen near Enniskillen that the story was told that Fionn McCool threw it from Belmore at a neighbouring giant, and that the bull-on marks on it were made by the pressure of his fingers. Again, a common refrain in the stories of standing stones around Ireland. At Boho, B-O-H-O, a spur of the mountain to the north, another bilberry outing was held. I wonder what the origin name is. Boho, cow something. It reminds me of Boha, which is where the famous Patrick's Chair stone is, where you watch the sun rolling down the side of Croagh Patrick. Around this time of the year as it happens, coming soon. Which is from Boha, which is che, which is hot. Not hot cow though. It's bow. It's bow as in a hot house, or one of those, like a sweat house or something. And a short note on a height near Belcoo, North MacNeill, County Fermanagh. An elderly countrywoman gave the following information. People here went up the side of a mountain overlooking Lough MacNeill to where there was a large flat slab of rock, 100 yards or so from a cliff falling down to the flat lands around the loch. Bilberries were gathered, but the main business was dancing to fiddle and melodeon on the rock mentioned. The custom has now completely died out. The Playbank in County Leitrim, so we're moving further west now to County Leitrim. And in fact, we shall be shortly be adjourning until next week. The northwesterly height of the Slieve Aniran Mass is called Slieve na Killa on some maps, and on others, the playground. At its feet lie Glengevelin to the north, Lough Allen to the west, and the deep valley of Balagleera to the south. 10 miles northward between the hills gleam the waters of Lough MacNeill. The country it dominates is one of the remote parts of Ireland, in the heart of wild mountains and bogland, far removed from towns of consequence and main arteries of travel. Glengevelin, at its feet, was the last inland part of Ireland where Gaelic was spoken. On its summit in the townland of Urbal Bar, there is a level plateau, firm and dry, known as the Playbank. And here, on the last Sunday of July, the people of the surrounding parishes used to resort. The day was generally called Dawnach Geranach. Forms Garland Sunday, Donach Sunday, Bilberry Sunday were also known. Sometimes as many as 2,000 people were said to be gathered there, quote, as thick as they could stand, unquote. They made the ascent in the early afternoon and stayed on the mountain for several hours. The old went as well as the young, fiddlers and single turns. The people of Glengevlin What is going on? I do apologise. I don't know what happened there. We had a momentary lapse of tech. I don't know what. I reckon I hit a key with the book on the keyboard. So I do apologise for the. Hopefully everything's back to normal. Janet Moran says, "Oh, did somebody mention the F words? Not my fault. I didn't. I don't think." There were sports too, such as jumping and weight throwing. It was remembered that there had been faction fighting, but no more than the merest memory of it has come down to us. Put 50 pence in the meter, says Paula Snow Queen. In the old days, Pete, do you know what? Our international viewers might not know what you mean, but I don't know if it was something in other countries, but in Ireland of our childhood, many people had metered electricity boxes in their house, and you had to put money in it. That's how you paid your bill. And the money lasted so long, and then all the lights and the electricity would go off, and somebody would say, "Put some money in the box," and then the electricity would come back on again. In the old days, poachine was sold at the playbank at 3 pence a naggin. I don't know whether that's good value or not. And the place where it was sold is still pointed out and known by the name of Loughnasdh, the still house. Wow. No bilberries grew on the summit, but bunches were picked on the way up. Local saying that from Downach Geranach onwards, the bilberry was losing its flavour. Sometimes people picnicked on the mountain with food they had brought up, and fires were lit to make tea, which, of course, must have been an addiction of fairly recent date to the alfresco meal. About 8 o'clock in the evening, the crowds began to leave the mountain. There was no further festivity connected with the day, but in some farmhouses, dances were held for the young people. The last big gathering is said to have been held about 1917. Small groups of boys and girls still climb the hill and pick bilberries, but the dancing on the summit and the attendance of musicians, the crowds on the sports are a thing of the past. It's also romantic, isn't it? Times past, really dead and gone to a large extent nowadays, you know. No old story is told of this assembly place, and no association with a special spot or monument is recorded. One of the old men who gave information to our correspondent said that the reason the people went up the hill was, quote, to give the last salute to the summer, unquote. I love that. And from him too came the interesting item that the people on leaving gave a loud cheer. We read that at Ganniamore in Donegal, which is earlier in the book and a part that I didn't read, the people assembled on the height also raised a shout, though there it was at the beginning and not at the end of the gathering. In this district, the last day of July is regarded as the end of summer and the beginning of autumn. And it is definitely connected with the first digging of the new potato crop and the first meal of new potatoes. Quote, often in place of tea on Dunna Sunday morning, a pot of potatoes was cooked, unquote. 3 floods, known as the Lammas floods, are said to come at this time of year, and not until after the third one, known as the Master Flood, is the weather expected to settle and continue fine. Right, one more. Benaghlin in County Leitrim. Due north of Lough Allen, there is a triangular highland mass whose apex touches the lake. Along its eastern side lies the valley between Lough Allen and Lough MacNeill. Its northern base runs from Glen Farn towards Manor Hamilton, and its western side is the glen between Lough Gill and Lough Allen. In this glen lies the little lake of Belhavel and the village of Killarga. Overlooking them is the height called Ben Scardaun, Scaurdaun, sometimes known as Lacka Mountain, Lackagh. On the last Sunday of July, which is known as Garland Sunday and was formerly called Dawnach Deranach, the people of the countryside went to Ben Scardon. They gathered first near a little lake called Loughnaleagh, Wellian, where there are two large round stones 20 feet high, known as the Sisters. And the musicians amongst them played their instruments, melodeons, fiddles and flutes, and others sang. About 3 in the afternoon, all who were assembled marched up the mountain to the playing of music. On the top there was a mound of stones around which they assembled. They stayed up until sunset, and children kept close to their parents, for there was a tradition that leprechauns used to be seen on the mountain on that day. The accounts tell little of what went on. One man had heard that there used to be faction fights. We may assume that the usual sports and dancing were performed. Bilberries, called either blaeberries or heatherberries, were picked and brought home to be made into jam, and flowers called heatherbells were also picked, tied in bunches, and carried home, where they were also strewn at the doors of outhouses to bring good luck. One informant said that garlands of flowers were laid on the mountaintop, and that it was from this custom that Garland Sunday got its name. On the day after the mountain gathering, a Lammas fair was held in Belhavel. Garland Sunday is regarded as the beginning of harvest, and the first meal of new potatoes, cooked as colcannon, is eaten before the ascent of the mountain. Good hardy Irish meal to keep you strong for the climb. It is also noted for heavy rain and thunderstorms. Wow. Imagine in Ireland, heavy rain, and its weather predicts the weather to come. It so happens that informants contradicted each other in their deductions from the weather omen, one saying that a wet gale predicted a bad harvest, while another had it that fine weather on that day would bring bad weather in the following week. So there you go, a contradiction. That is from the wonderful, magnificently comprehensive, absolutely fabulously brilliant. How many superlatives can I use? Fantastic. The Festival of Lughnasa by Máire MacNeill, which thankfully is still in print, thanks to University College Dublin. And I have the 2008 reprint. Anybody have an original from 1962? And of course, she was writing at a time, Folklore Commission were only too acutely aware of the fact that, that was a time when a lot of the folk customs were dying out, and the tales and the music and everything else were going with it. I mean, that had started at the time of the famine, if not earlier, and a lot of stuff died out or migrated away. But, she talks there to, even in the 1940s, festivities still occurring, and yet I'd say if you went back to all of these places now, in the modern era, you would find that the customs have all but vanished. Unfortunately, all but vanished. Beautiful, a wonderful record of, a wonderful, as is pointed out, a wonderful social record and historical record of how life used to be in Ireland in simple times before the big bad modernism rose its head in Ireland and all that came with it. Progress. What progress have we really made? Although here we are gathered at Lughnasadh, virtually, in a way that in former generations we might have done in person, picking bilberries and singing and dancing and wrestling and throwing weights and all that sort of stuff. Generally having fun and just having a simple life. Will we ever go back to it, do you think? I don't know. But anyway, good to have the record of it in any case. Don't forget that for patrons only, coming this week is an hour-long documentary about the excavations at Bowbeck. I've been working hard on that today and it's nearly finished. Also, in recent days, the patrons have been shown several photographs which are exclusives for patrons, and in the past week they had the July update video as to all of the stuff that's going on in the background here at Mythical Ireland. Don't forget, as always, I'll give a plug for the new publications. The most recent publication is the monograph number 2, Bowen and the Bowen, who's the goddess of the River Boyne and the Milky Way. And that's available for €13 plus postage and packaging from mythicalireland.com. The first in the series, Salmon of Knowledge, and that's €10 including postage and packaging. And don't forget, Return to Segish, my mytho-poetic. It's not a novel, it's not a work of non-fiction. It falls somewhere in between. And I hope you enjoyed yourselves. If you want to make suggestions for the book talk episode, send me an email to mythicalireland@gmail.com. I am not short of stuff, but if there's something in particular you'd like to hear from, let's hear it. Last year, as I say, at this time, we had a celebration. So if you go back through the channel, the YouTube channel, that's youtube.com/Mythical Ireland. If you happen to be watching on Facebook, you'll find a few videos pertaining to Lughnasadh. One from this time last year in which we celebrate Lughnasadh, and of course the one which is a little bit of an artistic rendering called Brone Trogan, talking about the older name for the Festival of Lughnasa. When do we get a Mythflix drone hunting episode, says Desiree. Actually, that's a good idea, because there's lots of stuff. There really is tons of stuff there, isn't there? Yeah. If you didn't think I'd bore you to death talking about aerial photography and discoveries, you know, I'd be very glad to. Tom King, I didn't even know you were in the house. Or did I say hello to you at the start? Good fun and thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you, Anthony, and my friends at the two. Until next time, stay safe out there. Yes, indeed, Tom, keep the forge lit. I hope you're in good form. Good to hear from you. Yes, Joe Butler reminds us that the postal service has been very good, because a lot of international deliveries of the Bowen monograph arrived within 7 days of dispatch, including one that arrived in Sydney, Australia, a week after delivery. Fantastic stuff. Thanks, Adina. Glad you enjoyed yourself. Stay safe, everyone. We'll talk to you all very soon. Yes, indeed. Melanie Lynn, always good to have you in the house, in the library. I'm going to get myself a dram. There you are. And tomorrow it's back to work, because it's been a bank holiday weekend here in Ireland. Maybe a continuation of the old celebrations. But we actually have a bank holiday on the first full weekend of August. So there you go. Siding with the harvest as it happens. All the very best to you. Stay well, stay safe. Come back, of course, again. Keep an eye, if you're on Facebook, to the Facebook page, where there's lots of stuff shared, usually on a daily basis. Don't forget to watch that short video about the only place in Ireland where you can legally drive over a henge. There you go. And what's it I always say? Ichawa, good night if you're in nighttime. If you're still in daytime, I hope you have a good day. Kolosov, sound sleep when you go there, when you go to bed. Slán go fóill. Bye for now. And as always, the most important one of all, Lexi Erickson, thank you indeed. And good night. The most important one of all, Toga Bugay. Take it easy. Until next time, hopefully next Monday, back with Book Talk. And who knows, in the meantime, maybe an impromptu live stream. Certainly plenty of other stuff happening on the Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Don't forget to follow them. Cheerio, everyone. Toga Bugay Slán.